as African American legislators in a state that has more African Americans than any other state in the country. And what we saw yesterday was a racial gerrymandered map that was ushered in from Mar-a-Lago, or it could have been wherever, the gold-plated White House, but we know it came from President Trump. Unfortunately, Governor Abbott and many of my Republican colleagues bend at the knee to acquiesce this racial gerrymandered map that President Trump said he needed 5 new seats. He got those seats on the backs of black and brown people, point blank. Black and brown communities were decimated. Millions of African Americans and Latinos, and all of us, not just African Americans and Latinos, and I'm happy to see the NAACP and LULAC here, and you'll hear from them, but people of good conscience should say, this is not the country that we want to see. We want to see the United States, not a divided states. We want to see a country where every citizen has an equal and fair opportunity to elect candidates of their choice, not packing and cracking to dilute minority communities' ability to elect a candidate of their choice. And that's what we saw yesterday. We saw Congressman Al Green, one of my mentors, the godfather of my twins, who represents many of my constituents in House District 27. We saw his 9th Congressional District decimated. Basically, he was removed from his 9th Congressional District, moved into the 18th Congressional District, so that we now have one African American Opportunity District in the Houston area. Now, why is that significant? Because based on the 2020 census, we had a tremendous growth over the last decade with African Americans. And not just African Americans, but Asian Americans and Hispanics. 95% of the growth over the last decade was minorities. And yet, and still, we had no minority opportunity seats. So this racial gerrymandered map, it actually reduced the number of African Americans from a already underrepresented population. So we went from 4 African American congressional seats to 2, 50% reduction. We should have had a 50% increase. So we're going in the wrong direction. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, my former desk mate, a great champion in Congress, they took her out of her 30th Congressional District and redrew her into the 33rd so they could pair her and Congressman Mark Vesey, one of my former colleagues, and another African American. This was all done with surgical precision. This was all done. You heard it yesterday. You heard the testimony. They knew what they were doing, and they laughed about it because they could get away with it, so they thought. You'll hear today about lawsuits that are going to be filed, and I believe that they're going to prevail. The state of Texas was on the wrong side of history. The state of Texas cannot continue to intentionally discriminate against its citizens, primarily its black and brown citizens, with this anti-diversity, equity, and inclusion. We've seen enough of the assaults on our democracy. And so we're here today to stand up to say enough is enough, that we're going to not be silent. Silence is complicity. This is a call to action to people of good conscience, just like after Bloody Sunday, when many of those civil rights leaders were beaten as they were marching across the Edmund Pettus Bridge to eradicate Jim Crow segregation and legislation, and people of good conscience joined, people of good conscience that were white, that were black, that were brown, that said, we want an America that lives up to the Constitution, that every citizen is given inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so I want to just thank everyone for being here, everyone for fighting, everyone for speaking truth to power, and everyone that had the ability to vote no on this racist, gerrymandered map that wants to rig the system because President Trump cannot win based on his unpopular policies. He can't defend those in the midterm. He can't defend that big ugly bill. He can't defend cutting Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security. He can't defend eliminating the Department of Education when people are trying to make ends meet and he's lied about he's going to reduce the price of eggs and inflation and gas and create more jobs. We've seen a record high in unemployment with African American women. He's done nothing but enrich his billionaire donors and his buddies, all while trying to divide our nation between the have and the have-nots, all while attacking women and their bodily autonomy, Muslims, LGBTQ, African Americans, Latinos. And we're here to say we are going to take our country back by voting each and every one of them out of office, from the top all the way down to the bottom. We're going to register voters in record number, and we're going to do everything we can to restore our country. And so with that, I'm proud to bring up the president, the state president of the Texas NAACP Conference, a mentor of mine for a long time when I was a past president of the Missouri City NAACP, and I'm a former national board member. He is still on the national board of the NAACP. Would you please receive Gary Bledsoe, one of the most prominent civil rights attorneys in the nation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for all your great work, and thank you for all my good friends up here and colleagues who are here for something that's very important. We are here from the NAACP to make a call out to all Texans of goodwill. What's occurring in this country right now, and particularly in our state, is an attempt to move back to the time of before even Jim Crow. In the Constitution of the United States, there was a provision that says 3/5 of all others, the old Southern Compromise that got the southern states to agree to become part of the Union. And in that provision, they made people who look like me just numbers for counting for the purpose of determining the number of congressional districts. But they had no political power. That's exactly what's being attempted here by Governor Abbott and President Trump. And let me say this very clearly. I think many in the media have gotten this wrong. This is not a partisan gerrymander. This is not a power grab. This is a racist power grab. I think Chairman Gervin Hawkins got that right yesterday, and I think she got under the skin of the bill's sponsor when she said that. But we want you to understand very clearly this is about race. And I don't think most people in our state share the bigotry that's in this bill, because this bill is not about getting 5 more seats. When you look at the seats that were in that DOJ letter from Trump's DOJ, they were all black and brown seats. And we look at the casualties of the map that was actually introduced, it's the black and brown members in the black and brown community that actually have suffered. What did this map look like? Well, number one, it's a war against black voters and black elected officials. Number two, it's clearly a war to go after urban Latinos in the map and deprive them of the representation they've had so far. Let's go through some of the districts so you'll understand what the consequences are to what's actually happened. The 9th Congressional District is an ability to elect district. It's not a coalition district. It doesn't matter what they said from the DOJ letter. The courts have made it very clear. This 50.1% magical thing that they hold as a silver bullet to harm minorities whenever they desire is not a requirement for an ability to elect district. It functions, and the 9th Congressional District had always functioned as an ability to elect district. And so the courts have said this is an ability to elect district. You can't just destroy an ability to elect district. What did they say yesterday on the floor? Well, we made it into a Latino majority CBAP district. Well, when you get through the data, it's not going to be a Latino district. It's clearly going to be an extremist performing district. The 9th Congressional District serves as a great example because in independent ways, it dilutes the vote of both black and constitute a majority for purposes of determining the elections in that district and elect the candidate of their choice. And brown voters now have been put into that district. What occurred in the last cycle of redistricting when they did the exact same thing, what the court said was it's dilution when you when you pack all the Latinos into a particular district with many Latinos who can't vote or won't vote with these high-performing white voters, because it becomes really a non-Latino district. So they can say we created these, but it's all hocus pocus. They are not going to perform for the Latino community. The data shows that. They know that. And the interesting thing I want everyone to know is they must have been afraid by looking at the data. So what they did is they doubled down. When you look at the 2308 map, and then you look at the recent 2333 committee substitute, they made sure they took out any chance of Latinos, for example, in Congressional District 9 to actually win. So Congressional District 9 is dilution against black and brown voters, and they destroyed an ability to elect district. The 18th has been an ability to elect district for many years. They've been after the 18th for so many years. It's been a thorn in the side of the people in Washington. And so in the 18th Congressional District, they decided to go and make it into a brand new district. They destroyed the 18th Congressional District, moved the 9th up to make the old 9th into the 18th Congressional District. And so the 18th Congressional District has now been packed. You heard them say yesterday that packing only involves one group. That's not true. What occurred in the litigation last time, when you saw that there were so many people that were from both African American and Latino groups that were put together in a district, that was held to be packing. That was held to be packing specifically in the 30th Congressional District. So, and what the court said in that case was that when a district is already performing, you don't need to go and add all these new people. Those are wasted voters, is what the court called it last time. So what they did is they packed the 18th Congressional District. And they did the same this time with the 3rd Congressional District a second time. Now, there's a trifecta in terms of the black members of Congress, and that all three were drawn out of their districts. So we think that's significant that all three were drawn out. And we look at the 30th Congressional District, we look and see how they took all the economic engines, of the main economic engines, out of the 30th Congressional District, even though they packed it with many voters. They brought many voters up that they were cracked out of districts in Fort Worth or in Tarrant County. And so with the cracking that occurred there to create this new district, they balkanized the 30th Congressional District and took out its major assets that were really part of the district, and that's one of the things that they should have kept together, because those are communities of interest that they disregarded in terms of how they actually put this map together. They changed the 33rd to where it's no longer going to be an ability to elect district for African Americans. It was not a coalition district as what the DOJ letter has contended. It was a court-drawn map, and the court that drew the map wrote an opinion. And the court's opinion in terms of the map, they said this is not a coalition district. This is a naturally occurring district, as we can actually draw, as in Bartlett versus Strickland. And so this is a naturally occurring district that we drew, and African Americans have been able to determine the candidate of choice in that district, and that's a protected district as well. So they destroyed that. You come to Austin, and what did they do? In court, they were bragging about the 35th Congressional District. They were talking about, as a result of 2193, that you had a Latino in that district now. It had been drawn to become a Latino Opportunity District. And so all of a sudden, it's so important that the district now goes all the way through San Antonio, which is something that we complained about before. We said, look, you can draw up a Latino Opportunity District without going that far. But now they decided that that's a problem, but instead of maintaining a Latino Opportunity District, they just destroyed that and made it into a district that will not elect the Hispanic candidate of choice out of the Hispanic. To look at is this, as I want to finish finally with a couple of data points that I think are really important. In the current map, white voters dominate 73% of Texas congressional districts. In this new map, it seems that at a minimum, it's going to be 81% that will be dominated by white voters. So you have black and brown voters that are limited to 19%, and Asian voters where they can influence the outcome of the election. So we think that's clearly really an apartheid bill. It's, that is intended to disenfranchise people based on their political beliefs and their race. And so this is about race, but we need your help in telling the Senate that we don't want this bill. We need your help in telling the governor that he needs to back down. Or if they don't back down, we need your help in saying that we don't want Texas to be some racist, bigoted state from the past. We want it to be the new Texas that we bragged about just a few years ago. So thank you very much. And Rep. Cole, I think.
I have some words.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Cheryl Cole, and I represent House District 46. My family is a fifth-generation Texan. We came here with Stephen F. Austin and the old 300s. So in the words of one of my colleagues, Tony Rose, don't DC my Texas. We as African Americans know the history, and we know that there is a conspiracy to erase it because you've looked the future in the eye and you are afraid, Donald Trump. You are afraid with the browning and blacking and colorizing of America. But there is no need to be afraid. Texas has previously led the nation with this diversity, not even necessarily under Democratic rulership. It's done it under Republican rulership. So we're not going back to where the Voting Rights Act doesn't matter. We're going to go back to the future because we recognize what has to happen. I keep hearing, what is the Democratic plan? Well, the Democratic plan is to fight these racially gerrymandered maps.
That's right.
And to reignite our civil rights organizations and our people. We're going to go back to a time when we knew each other and we ran into each other in the grocery store and we said, how you doing? And you said, I'm doing fine. No, I see it in your eyes, how you doing? Well, I could use some of that banana pudding, and I mean your grandmother's recipe. We're going to double down on what we know works. Registering voters, meeting together in town halls, because we are upset with these racially gerrymandered maps. And I'm making a call to action now.
I want to just say one thing to add. Today, on the House floor, we're taking up flood relief. That is something we should have led with. That is the primary focus that most Texans care about right now, because we lost over 130 Texans and many innocent children. Yet, that was House Bill 1 that we're taking up. But what do we lead off with? Racial gerrymander. This is failed Republican leadership, misplaced priorities, putting politics before people. We're not talking about African American leading the nation with maternal mortality. We're not talking about Texas having the highest number of uninsured. We're not talking about Texas being one of now 10 states that doesn't have Medicaid expansion. Texas being one of 10 or 11 states that still pays $7.25 an hour minimum wage when most states have raised it. Texas would be the 8th largest economy in the world if it was its own country, but yet and still we have not even livable wages. And that's why I'm so proud to see Rick Levy, the president of the Texas AFL-CIO here, because it's so important that we prioritize working families, not just the billionaires. And we're giving corporate welfare. We pass vouchers that are going to hurt our public schools. So there are so many misplaced priorities, but we're not talking about the kitchen table things that Texans care about. And when they send their kids to school, having strong public schools regardless of zip code, having schools that are safe because of these mass gun shootings and raising the age, you know. So those are the things I just wanted to put in perspective. We shouldn't be here today talking about what we did yesterday. We should be here today celebrating that we did flood relief for those victims and those families that lost their life because of a flood that could have been prevented.
I wanted to also add, since I represent House District 46, I want to talk a little bit about 35 and 37. 35 was a Hispanic district. Bragged about it. And now they want to take it away and make it silence the voices of the Hispanic community and require a brown person, take a brown person's seat. That is also racist, and I wanted to hear more. Good morning. My name is Gloria. The League of United Latin American Citizens, LULAC. I am General Counsel for National LULAC, and we're here representing national, state, and local councils, all of areas. What is happening here, and what is likely happening in the Senate is a display of power on the backs of minorities, Hispanics, blacks, bill that dilutes the power and the voting strength of Hispanics, African Americans, and other minorities. Instead of allowing Hispanics to gain at least 2 congressional seats, this map continues the precedent of denying Hispanic 2 congressional seats. Are you aware that we do not have an Hispanic majority seat in the DFW Metroplex? And we are entitled to another Hispanic majority seat in Harris County. The last census said that minorities in Texas constituted the greatest population growth. Hispanics accounted for approximately 72% of that growth. But instead of gaining 2 congressional seats, we lose 2. And instead of gaining at least 2 here, we're potentially losing 5 seats because of this gerrymandered racial bill, okay? What? At the behest of the big white giant in the room? What happened to the independence of Texas? What happened to the land of LBJ? Right.
That's right.
What happened to the land of inclusion? I am from South Texas. I'm from the Rio Grande Valley. My parents we're 4th and 5th generation Texans. We have always lived in this state. We didn't cross no river. The border crossed us. We constitute the greatest, the fastest growing population in Texas, and we constitute the greatest, largest workforce in Texas. Who picks your fields? Who does your yards? I have roofers on my roof right now, replacing the roof because of all the hail damage. They're all Hispanic. Drive down the road on the highways. Who are the workers? It's Hispanics. Our growth and power cannot and will not be denied, because regardless of whether they gerrymander more redistricting seats in the future, we will continue to grow. And there's no denying it. And there will be more people that look like me, my brothers and sisters, and my colleagues here. It is interesting. Are attacking the Hispanics primarily in the urban areas. In Harris County, in DFW, at the DFW, here in Austin, and the Rio Grande Valley, they're creating even more fajita districts and diluting Hispanic and African power in so doing. The long-term damage is undeniable, but that's okay. LULAC will continue to fight as it has fought, and we will again challenge this racial gerrymandering. We are again asking the court to intervene and provide justice to the Hispanic minority community, because we are entitled to it. Our numbers demand justice. Our representatives need your support. But this is beyond impacts to Latinos and Hispanics. This has national implications by a party that wants to do all it can to stay in power on the backs of minorities. Our commitment today is that, or our message today is, democracy in Texas is on trial. We will litigate, we will organize, we will raise our voices, and we will vote.
That's right.
This is the promise of America, and that is a promise that LULAC extends to you, that we will defend our constitutional right to vote and justice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have one final speaker, and that is President Rick Levy with the Texas AFL-CIO. I also want to recognize that we have another state representative that was on the floor yesterday and voted no. She was on the right side of history, Representative Terry Meza.
40-year member of LULAC.
All right, 40-year member of LULAC.
And one of my members. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Rick Levy. I'm the president of the Texas AFL-CIO, which is the state labor federation representing 250,000 union members across the state of Texas. And when you look at this picture, maybe it looks at the beginning like one of these things is not like the others, but we really are. And so I want to tell you about why this redistricting issue is such an important issue for the labor movement and why we have been so involved in organizing and fighting for fair maps in this country. Number one, there is a historic alliance in this country between the labor movement and organizations that have fought for civil rights. That's on a national level, that's on the state level. I'm proud to say that just standing up here with Gary Bledsoe is an honor in and of itself for me. Sir, when you speak and you lay out the truth, I know I'm on the right side of history when I'm standing with you. Second, this map and the process that led to it is just wrong. It is corrupt, and it is driving people in this state and this country further and further apart. Division is not good for working people.
That's right.
Third, what this bill does is roll back the Voting Rights Act very intentionally. It is a direct assault on the Voting Rights Act. And it's a direct assault on the Voting Rights Act. Number one, they're saying, you know, we don't care, we don't have to, we're in office. But number two, they're trying to start this fight in the courts in the hope that the courts will again bend the knee like so many other institutions in this country have to the prevailing force. And that is a very, very dangerous game, because the Voting Rights Act has been critical in moving this country forward to its highest ideals. We all know, as Gary talked about, that this country started out considering African Americans as 3/5 of a person, and has been black and brown votes that have driven us forward to try and overcome that history and live up to our true ideals. And then finally, what this is really about, because maps are not an end in and of themselves. Maps are means to an end. And we need to talk about what the end is here, is that the only way that the billionaire class is getting their way in our politics is by rigging the game so that they can prevail. And let me talk about two very specific ways that directly relate to what we're doing right now. Sylvester Turner, Congressman Sylvester Turner, passed away in January of this year. His seat remains vacant because our governor has refused to even call an election to fill that seat. What are the consequences of that? The consequences of that are that the big, ugly bill, which had the greatest transfer of wealth from working class people to billionaires in the history of this country, this bill that militarized our cities, this bill that stripped millions of people from health care, basic health care, this bill that stripped collective bargaining rights from over 1 million people with the single stripe of a pen, passed by one vote.
Yep.
That bill would not have passed had we been allowed to have the elections that we deserve. And now this gerrymandering is an attempt to do it on steroids, because what they are seeking to do is insulate themselves from any political accountability in the midterms. which will then give this administration unfettered access to continuing their assault on working people across the country. So using a racist gerrymandering, dividing our communities, slicing and dicing them in a dark, unseen way is not good for black and brown people, it's not good for working people, and that's why we're all standing together, have been standing together, and will stand together to make sure that this does not stand. So thank you very much.
Thank you, President Levy. I want to acknowledge the president of the Austin NAACP, Nelson Linder, is here. And I want to acknowledge our final speaker that's going to close us out, State Representative Gina Hinojosa. Come on up here, Gina. Gina's been working on the redistricting, and we talked about the impact of this racial gerrymander. It is especially harmful to African Americans and Hispanics. That is why I'm so proud that we have LULAC and the NAACP and labor standing in solidarity, and I can't think of a more fitting way to close us out today and then open up for questions than Representative Gina Hinojosa.
Thank you, Representative Reynolds. It is an honor to be here, but the circumstances are very sad for our communities. I want to speak to the impact on the Latino community that this mid-decade redistricting bill has. So let me just speak to areas that I know well. Here in Austin, we have 2 congressional seats, one held by Lloyd Doggett, one held by Greg Casar. The one held by Greg Casar is the only Latino Opportunity District that is currently in the maps. That seat is eliminated under the new Trump maps, or the new maps that have just been passed by the House. I am originally from the Rio Grande Valley, from a city called Brownsville. Brownsville has a Latino population that is over 95% Latino and growing. When you look at the congressional district in Brownsville, in this new map, they double the Anglo voting population in that district and cut the Latino voting population in that district. It goes from about 70,000 more Anglo votes and subtracts almost 25,000 Latino votes. That is a direct attack on our Latino community. We know that is the motivation behind this bill, because the governor specifically pointed to a letter from the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi that says they are targeting districts for elimination because they are black and brown. It is not only immoral, it is also unconstitutional. Right. And so I feel confident that it is in violation of both the Voting Rights Act and also our U.S. Constitution, and now it will be up to the courts to make sure they exercise their authority to protect our constitutional rights. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions?
Okay, Donald Trump put on social media that he was very happy to this decision. How can you respond, because now he's leading to other states to apply the same strategy that happened here in Texas?
Well, I'll start off. I did see that comment, and he was given a high five and an attaboy, like, hey, Texas did what I told them to do. They bended at the knee, and now we'll go to Indiana and Missouri and other states to gain more seats so we can have more control. We believe this is dangerous precedent, and that is why my colleagues and I broke quorum and went specifically to California, where I know Representative Hinojosa had a chance to meet with Governor Newsom. And you will see likely California Assembly passing their legislation today to then send it to the voters for a ballot referendum in November to have 5 Democrat seats. We went to New York. We went to New Mexico. We're not stopping. We're going to be on the offensive to make sure that we level the playing field, because Trump is trying to rig the system, and it's always incumbent bond in kind. This is not the way we should do things. Unfortunately, this is the precedent, the dangerous precedent that President Trump is setting, and as it was stated here today, that is unconstitutional, and these maps should be stricken down. But we know that litigation takes years. We're still in litigation from the 2021 redistricting, where NAACP, LULAC, and others filed lawsuits. So we demand a stop to it now. The only way we can stop it now is we have other states and governors like California to step up and say, we're going to do, if you're going to do this to Texas, we're going to do it to you, and we're going to do it in New York, we're going to do it in Illinois, we're going to do it in Maryland, and other blue states. It's a domino effect. The best thing to do is to stop it in its tracks. The Senate, it's not too late for them to act. I hope the Senate filibusters. I mean, I hope they break quorum. That's what I hope they do. We want our Senate Democratic colleagues to break quorum to stop this monstrosity from passing in Texas.
Amen.
I have a question for Rep. Reynolds and Christopher from Houston. Rep. Reynolds, yesterday the governor added 3 new items on the call, including one about imposing penalties or punishments. People are lawmakers who leave. He said that rogue lawmakers cannot hijack the important business of Texas during the legislative session by fleeing the state. Your reaction?
I think that Governor Abbott certainly, doesn't, he understands that what he did originally was unconstitutional when he tried to remove Chairman Gene Wu from office. The Attorney General slapped him and said, hey, you don't have that authority. Then he did it, and he didn't have the authority. I was one of the 13 Democrats. I think you were maybe one of those too. We're one of the 13 Democrats that they want to remove from office with a petition that Attorney General Paxton filed to remove us from office from the Texas Supreme Court. We believe that's unconstitutional. Now Governor Abbott is trying to legislate the ability to punish and likely remove us from office. Last time after we broke quorum in 2021, we know that they came back with these rules and a $500 per day fine and possible expulsion with 2/3 votes and removing budgets from our office. The minority party that may not always be the minority party, they're trying to do everything they can so that we don't have a voice, so they cripple us. We saw what they did to Representative Collier, literally arrest her to make her a prisoner in the House chamber behind us. We had arrest warrants where they were trying to come to our house. We had the Senator Cornyn said he wanted to sick the Department of Justice and the FBI on us. We had the Attorney General said they want to hunt us down. We had Governor Abbott said he had more bullets in his gun. So these are all dangerous rhetoric where they want to use us as prey. And so I think that this is a dangerous precedent that Governor Abbott is trying to set, and we are going to fight it every single step. We know that we're in the minority party, but just because you're in the minority party doesn't mean that you have to trample upon your opposition and treat us as though we're the enemy. And I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I would like to add something to that. Yes, we broke quorum because it is exactly what our constituents wanted us to do. The only one who needs punishing is Greg Abbott for doing the bidding of Donald Trump.
That's
and
right.
not the people of Texas. And let me also add that for the governor of this state to tell the House what to do about its members is disrespectful to the independent status that we have. It is disrespectful to our speaker that he is now telling the House what to do with its members. It is unprecedented, and I hope that we stand up against this disrespect to the Texas House.
And quick reaction, I was listening to the Senate committee. They didn't take a single, any testimony whatsoever, and it just got voted out of committee 5-3. It's heading down to the Senate floor, HB4. Your reaction to that, and if yesterday was a dark day, what would today be, knowing that it's on the way to the Senate?
We have to keep this in the full context. This started with Donald Trump asking for 5 seats and to cheat. He called up Greg Abbott just like he called up in Georgia for 11,000 votes.
That's right.
We have to ask, is this the America that we want? And are we going to stand up to it in Texas? It is wrong for those maps to have passed out of the House yesterday, and it is wrong for them to have passed out of the Senate. But we know now, we affectionately are starting to call her our Rosa Parks, Nicole Collier. And we're going to have to find our Thurgood Marshall to take these things to the
I love that.
courts.
Yes.
We are going back to what we know we have to do when we are facing such oppression as we are right now.
And I know Attorney Bledsoe can speak to the next wave that LULAC talked about, and that is litigation.
Sure, but first of all, Mr. Chair, one thing I want to say about what happened in the Senate. When you see things that are extraordinary that are happening, these are signs or indications of clear intentional discrimination. Why is it that we had this new bill, 2333, never become subject to public scrutiny? The bill was unveiled this Monday. It was not unveiled in a hearing. It was unveiled in a committee meeting. It was voted out, and for substantial changes from 2308. They moved forward with this bill. And yesterday, when Rep. Reynolds and others challenged the bill sponsor, Hunter, about this, he seemed very uneasy because he knew what was occurring. He did something that I thought was even really disrespectful to Chair Reynolds. He started to call him Ron. If you notice, you go back and look at the video, he stopped calling him what is customary on the House floor. He stopped calling him Rep. Reynolds. He kept calling him Ron. And I wondered what the signal was that he was sending in calling him by his first name continually. Secondly, I think that in terms of what's occurring in the Senate, if it's going to be voted on the same day in the actual Senate, that's truly extraordinary. That never really happens. What is it that they're afraid of? Why is it that they don't want to have the public to comment on C-2333?
They're afraid of Latinos and African Americans.
That's right.
Yes. And they're afraid of good people,
That's
good,
right.
solid white Americans that understand right is right and wrong is wrong. And they understand the growth of our nation and the growth of our country and the growth of our state, where we've become a state where we all can get along. We have black and brown representation. We realize that we have a whole lot more in common as Americans and Texans than we have that is actually different. And so I think that frightens them. They have an all-out attack on people actually getting together and living in a cooperative environment. We have to, what the Texas legislature has done, and I think this is embodied in this bill, they are codifying a requirement that people of our state be racist. Okay, they're saying you can't teach critical race theory. They're saying that you can't have DEI programs. They've had such intimidation put out there to where it really is going to undermine the ability of black and brown people to actually get jobs, because they're going to be worried about scrutiny from the state in terms of whether or not something was a DEI hire. It's really unfortunate what's actually occurred. And so what we hope is we hope that the courts will still be a guardian of liberty, and that the courts will look at this and understand it for what it is. We understand when there are dark days and difficult times, as Chair Reynolds talked about, but sometimes, you know, the courts can actually step up. And so what we're hoping is that the courts will understand the gravity of the situation. They will understand the threat to democracy and to freedom. They will understand how this doesn't just affect black and brown Texans, but this affects all of us, because once you, as you've heard the old cliche, or what Martin Luther King said, a threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. If they come after black and brown Texans, they're going to come for you tomorrow. Yeah. And you don't know how that's going to impact your life.
That's right.
And so what we are hoping is that if we can't stop this now, that we get the good people of this state to join in and try to prevent the governor from going forward with it. But if not, we're hoping that the federal courts will have the latitude to look at things and not be intimidated.
Well, unfortunately, that has to end it. We have to get on the floor. But thank you all for being here and covering this press conference today. Thank you. Thank you.
I'll send you this.
Okay, yeah, I need that.
Okay.
Thank you, Gary.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Hey, thank you,